Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Sorry for the delay. Ack may join us today, but we're not sure. But you got Russ and myself. There's some games last night, some interesting chatter going around, some interesting news occurred late last night after the Canadiens' victory over Ottawa. But we'll discuss that all in a few minutes. Go ahead with the pre-show, Russ.
I just want to let people know, too, I'm part of a construction zone today, so this view looks a little different, and it is just what it is today. No drop cloths. I at least have the drop cloths off. Anyhow, let's talk about WrestleMania. I don't know. What number are we up to? 75? I don't know.
52? Or I don't even know.
I don't know. But let's talk about it, because the interesting thing is they're starting to promote it. And they give you this great promotion, right? Look, WWE does a great job with video. They know how to entice their fans. They know how to get people involved, engaged, all of it. They do a great job with that. After you sit through about 90 seconds to a minute and a half, 2.5 minutes maybe, of the presentation, at the very last second, it says, exclusively on Peacock. And that's where I basically say you've lost me. Because, look, we are in an age where basically a lot of these companies now are all creating the offshoots for you to pay for while you're still paying for cable. So now, while you may have cut the cord, in many cases you're having to buy 10 or 15 subscriptions if you really want everything back, or you keep cable and you have a couple subscriptions. But everybody wants you to keep adding them, and my goal is to keep removing them. I don't want all of them. I don't need all of them, right? So what they also hope you do is when you sign a free trial that you'll forget. And when you forget, they can at least bill you for one cycle. And that's the goal here. They're trying to get everybody to jump on Peacock and at least sign up for a free trial, and they'll be like, look, it's free. You can do it. And it's like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Now I got to worry about another service to cancel or keep or whatever, and it's just too much.
Well, when we have a free thing, okay, if it's free, then why do you need my credit card number? Because
right.
I'm not giving you my credit card number if it's free.
You're not watching WrestleMania, Mike.
Okay, then screw you. It's like, sorry, Peacock. I've already watched all 3 seasons of Yellowstone, and.
Right.
And I, like I've seen every.
I'm with you. By the way, I like Yellowstone. I'm not going to another service to buy it. So if you're making me do that, I'm willing to live with the 3 seasons I've watched and abandon the show,
or watch it live,
or watch it down the road
on the Paramount channel if you get that on your cable service, which most people don't get. So yeah, I mean. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we talked about this years and years ago about there was legislation in I think it was in the Senate for a la carte internet and a la carte cable, and that sounded great. And this is the realization of that is that okay, you're going to be purchasing individual systems, for Universal, for Paramount, for Disney. Blah 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 blah. But don't think that you're saving anything. You can pick and choose packages for cable and things of that nature. I love the fact, like with the cable service that I have in Buffalo, I have to pay $12 extra a month just to get NHL Network because it's on a separate sports package.
Yes.
So I get Fox Sports, Uganda. I get every Fox Sports that has nothing on there that I want to see because they black out all the hockey games for the center ice package.
Right. They know how to get people and trap people, but I didn't think the WWE would fall victim to this, but they have. And if they have, you know what? It's your own fault. When you started the network and told people it was only $10 a month, you had grandiose plans, I guess, of getting hundreds of millions of subscribers so you could pay the wrestlers. And maybe that didn't happen for you guys, or maybe people kept dropping off during the pandemic. Whatever the reason, now you're basically telling people there's a free version of the WWE Network. Then there's the WWE Network that's $10 a month. Now there's Peacock where you have to go watch their premiere event. And that's, again, I'm not a big enough fan anymore to go through all those steps, so I will just not watch it.
Okay. Not that I'm like really into the whole entertainment world, but like, I worked in a movie theater for 10 years. So I like, watching the Oscars or watching some of these award shows to a point. And I watched about 15 minutes of the Golden Globes this year, and then turned it off because it was so painful to watch with everybody. And I understand the reason why, but everybody was on. It was like basically a Zoom call like this, or a StreamYard call, where you had the 5 nominees in little windows. And the thing that made me feel weird was that, okay, if it's Oscar night or if it's Golden Globe night, and it's a thing where you walk the red carpet and you get the ladies look fantastic in their whatever designer dress that they're wearing, and the guys wear their tuxedos. You're in your own apartment, and the girl from Queen's Gambit was dressed like in this this designer gown, and really,
They all did it. Everybody.
Well, no, that I was going to tip my hat to Bill Murray and Jason Sudeikis, formerly of Saturday Night Live, and now it was a Ted Lasso. I think he won for. He was dressed in a hoodie.
Right.
Bill Murray was dressed in a Hawaiian shirt. It's like, okay, that sort of goes with what the pandemic is. It's like everybody's wearing nobody's wearing a tuxedo in front of their computer screen. They're probably wearing jogging pants and a shirt. And you
would rather see that and think that it's more real during a pandemic than people getting dressed up.
Well, it just struck me.
Do you want everybody to wear gray like you are? Is that really the goal?
Well, this isn't gray. This is blue.
Mike, that's gray.
It's not. It's the camera. This is
Mike,
blue.
Everybody, chat room, please chime in. This is as gray as the sky in Plattsburgh, New York. Trust me.
I will take a picture.
Take a picture.
I will take a picture of this and post it on Twitter to tell you that this is blue, because the camera on my phone is much better than the one on my computer. So anyway, but it's blue. It's blue. And Dr. Kluche, you're colorblind. You must be. Gray. Terry 3G says gray. Okay, whatever. All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, March the 3rd, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, we had a bunch of games last night, but I'll start with this one because the interesting news that occurred, apparently during the game, but then wasn't released until after the game. The Montreal Canadiens beat the Ottawa Senators. I think the final score was 3-3 when they got the empty netter. I watched a lot of the game. And Carey Price started and made 26 saves on the night. Looked pretty decent, everybody's really combing through the performances of Carey Price to try to interpret it. It was a talk about the all annoying double play when it comes to a goal last night, Russ. Corey Perry setting up Brendan Gallagher. It's like that. I think the apocalypse was if Dale Hunter had stepped on the ice, that the world would have ended.
Right.
But after the game, we'll talk about the game in a second. But after the game, it was announced that Stefan Waite, who's been the longtime goaltender coach for the Canadiens, was dismissed by Marc Bergevin, and Sean Burke, who is been a goaltending consultant coach with Arizona, and apparently he's tried to get more into a sort of assistant general manager's role over the last few years, has been hired as the goaltender coach / director of goaltending with the Canadiens. And Waite and Carey Price apparently had a close relationship. And they announced they fired him during the game and then informed Price after the game that the decision had been made.
This is all unnecessary. You know what this is? All this is just for show. That's what this is. Because, again, if you think Carey Price needs a goalie coach, you're crazy. If you think Carey Price is going to all of a sudden get transformed because Sean Burke's there, you're crazy. Could Carey Price help Jake Allen? Sure, because Jake Allen's never been at the level that Carey Price has been at. Can he help a young goaltender? Absolutely. Because, again, you're growing through the ages, 23 to 27 as a young goalie. Carey Price has been through it all. He won that game yesterday 3-1. He didn't need a goalie coach because technically he didn't have one. That's my point in all this. This is all for show. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but the optics of it scream panic.
But that's it. It's all optics. That's all it is.
The optics of this scream panic. I mean, the firing of Julian in favor of Ducharme. Okay, maybe you needed a different voice, but it was a panic move, and this is another panic move. You have a 10-point. You have the highest paid goaltender in the NHL at $10.5 million, and he's playing average, and it's like, okay, it's got to be the goalie coach. Let's fire him. I mean, it really is. It's an absolute panic move, and I think it's desperate. And I don't know. I just think that the Canadians should be better than this, but I think that this is sort of the reaction to the Montreal mob, and that if they don't make the playoffs or if they don't succeed in the playoffs, that Bergevin is probably going to pay for it with his job.
I don't know if it'll be that quick. I'm hearing it might not be. He's not. There is a belief he's tied to Ducharme, and then there's another stronger belief that he isn't. So I don't know if that's actually true. So I can't say that. But what I'll say is, if they do well now, it really doesn't have anything to do with Ducharme, and it really doesn't have anything to do with Julian. It had to do with the ups and downs of an NHL season and the fact that this team's hopes are pinned on Carey Price no matter how you look at it. If Carey Price gets hot now, are you going to get Ducharme credit? You can't. It's Carey Price. That's who would get credit.
What's the old saying? Show me a good goaltender, and I'll show you a good coach.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's really going on here. They won a game. That's good. Now they're off to Schneid. Would they have won a game if they kept Julian? Yes, they would have. Would their season have been in jeopardy had Julian stayed? I don't believe so.
They say that his fate had already been decided before.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, how many forms of horse crap, do you want? I mean, because that's that basic. I mean,
I'm just not buying it, and that's fine. I don't need to buy it. I'm just giving my opinion. But my opinion is they would have gotten to this place with or without these changes.
All right, let's move on. The New York Islanders beat the New Jersey Devils 2-1 yesterday. I was tracking this game. Every once in a while, I'd check back to it.
I did. I was watching some of it too.
It was nothing through 2, so it was like watching paint dry.
It was nothing until 13 seconds left in the game.
Well, yeah.
Not nothing, but it was nothing for the Devils, I should say.
Right, nothing for the Devils. But the Islanders scored 2 goals early in the third period and then held on. As you said, Miles Wood scored with 14 seconds left to narrow the gap to 2.
Who's one of the Islander goals, Mike? Who scored one of them?
That would be Oliver Wahlstrom, who's got his 3rd goal in 4 games.
I mentioned him the other day, and I think X sort of just was like, it's not enough scoring. I don't know. Yeah, well, it's enough. They don't need a lot, the Islanders. They just need a little.
Right. With the Barry Trotz system, you don't exactly need tons of goals. But
no.
I mean, the question is, and we saw examples of it being successful in Washington, but that was a super talented team playing the Trotz style. The Trotz style didn't work in Nashville because he didn't have enough offense. He didn't, they were good teams. They got to the playoffs a lot, but they did not have success in the postseason because they didn't have enough scoring to win those close games. In Washington, he did, but I think they sort of played a hybrid of what Trotz normally plays. Now I think the Islanders are playing that style, and the question will be, and they got enough offense in the bubble last year to get to the conference final, but the question is, will they have enough offense this year to get through a very tough division?
It's different this year. The whole thing is different. So that is a fair question to ask. But let's talk about the Devils for a minute, because with Eck not on the show, we don't have to be all roses and potential with the Devils.
Pom-poms? Yeah.
They're not good. The Devils are a bad team. They have a good goalie. They have some good players. I like Jack Hughes. I like Severson. There's plenty of players I like. It's just not working. Now, what's going to happen with the Devils? Can we say for sure Tom Fitzgerald's job is completely safe? I can't say that with great certainty. Did he get a 1 year or a 2 year when he got extended?
Well, that was the reason why his name was being mentioned in connection with Pittsburgh, because he has a multi-year contract, but 1 year as GM. The rest is just like a contract for the hockey department or something.
Right. So we can't say that there won't be changes in New Jersey after this year. We cannot say that.
No,
because there might be. They are still in, and look, and Pavel Zacha has done well. And if you noticed, I never bailed on him. I was always a fan, but I know people were like, hey, he's a bust or whatever. He's still a big forward. And a lot of times those big forwards, it takes time. But I have noticed Zacha's uptick in the last few weeks, and I've seen him get around the net now. And yeah, he's a lot stronger and he is comfortable. So I'm happy for him. But they still need so much. And Subban's not, I mean, he's not any good anymore. He's just not. PK Subban is just a regular average Joe defenseman. That's what he is.
He can't move anymore. He's slow.
And so they still have problems as a team. Yeah, McLeod is getting a little better. Well, hopefully he can make a jump too, Esmir, you're right. But right now they're in the same spot they were last year. They might be a few people better personnel-wise, but the record's not going to be much different. Yes, the division changed, so maybe that's a part of it. But they're not going to make any big gains this year. The only thing they did was maybe boost the trade value of Miles Wood, who probably had no trade value coming into the season, and he's gotten hot. So maybe that's, something that they can move.
Well, I mean, and that's the big question here, just to park on the Devils for a second. I believe they have the most or second most unrestricted free agents in the league.
Yeah.
And Esmir's right. I when I did watch them play against the Sabres, they had the old Mississauga connection of McLeod and Nathan Bastian playing on the fourth line, and they looked good. I mean, they were.
I'm a fan of Bastian. I've got him on my fantasy team. I drafted him as a player because I knew he would come around, but he's another big power forward type. That takes time, but when he is around the net, he's got very good hands.
But I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know how much finish he has. Or
I think he's got 12 goal finish.
Yeah, I think that's about right. But you look at here's the list of unrestricted free agents that are on the roster currently. Travis Zajac, I don't think he has much value.
No.
Nikita Gusev, if somebody's looking for scoring, maybe. But
he might go back.
But but I'm just saying, like for the rest of the
trade, he might have a little value.
Right. Kyle Palmieri, I think, is a lot of value.
He's going to stay there, I think.
Well, he hasn't signed a contract yet.
I know, but I still have a feeling he might go somewhere, try and be a winner, and come back and sign with them. They really do like him. It wouldn't shock me if that happened with him. Right.
On defense, Ryan Murray, Sami Vatanen, Connor Carrick, I don't think has a lot of value, and Dmitry Kulikov, and then Aaron Dell as a backup goaltender.
Aaron Dell, 18 to 20 saves yesterday.
There you go. I think it's possible Palmieri is somebody that they would shop because they could get draft picks or prospects from him and then re-sign him in the summer. A team like he's always been connected to Boston. There's been the Islanders because he's from the island.
Yep.
I could see that type of move happen with New Jersey retaining salary to fit those players in. That's where Fitzgerald's got to be thinking right now. He can't be thinking, I've got 6 games. And he doesn't have to make a decision right this second because you've got a lot of time. You've got 6 weeks into the deadline. But this team isn't going anywhere right now. You keep your young kids. You play your young kids. You see where things go. But the guys who are unrestricted free agents, you trade as many as you can.
Yeah, I'm just worried about the blue line because you have all these UFAs. They've made trades. Are they really going to bring Ryan Murray back? Probably not. Are they going to? I mean, Subban will be under contract, for 1 more year?
Yeah, at $9 million. If I was
$9 million, so that's immovable.
It's movable, and if I was them, I would think about buying him out, but they probably won't because they need his cap hit to get to the cap floor.
Right. So there's that issue. And then who is the other?
Well, they have Severson under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah, he's safe. That's fine.
Yeah, Will Butcher for 1 more year, and then Ty Smith is on his ELC.
Yeah, Ty Smith's on. No, all right. So they're going to lose 2 of their defensemen. Riley Walsh is doing well right now in Binghamton, 4 points in 7 games at 21, maybe at 22. They have to give him a look because they're not going to spend big money in free agency. But again, they can make some gains on their blue line. Their goaltender will make gains just by getting older. They can make some gains if they re-sign Palmieri and pick up another scorer or so. But even next year, it's going to be hard to envision them as a playoff team. I don't think they're there yet. I think Alexander Holtz will come over, and that's another year for them to get a young guy to work his way in. I mean, Holtz has 17 points in 35 games for Dewgarden. That's pretty good. Last year in 35 games, he had 16 points. So, against men, he's improving. So you can see the argument there where maybe they do bring him over, but he's 19. Maybe they make him wait one more year because they realize they may not contend next year. That'll be an interesting decision. But at the end of the
Esmir says they're waiting on Nolan Foote. Kevin Ball, who they got in the Taylor Hall deal.
Yeah, Ball may be ready by next year. He's a big kid. He's like 6'7". I don't know how mobile he is for the NHL game.
He's 6'7".
I know.
So I mean that was, and he did play.
Foote is a good one though. That's true. Foote will be there, I think.
Right. Okay, I'll save this game to last. Let's. The game that we both watched and both commented on a lot was the Penguins and the Flyers. It was a 5-2 victory for the Penguins. Philadelphia. Okay, Russ, I'll say it first. They have real issues. They really do. I know they'll make the playoffs. They'll make the playoffs. They've got some talent.
Will they? I can't guarantee that.
Well, I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm saying I think that they will, and they have talent. But I have not seen an organization miss one player as much, and not a star player, one player as much as the Flyers have fallen back because of the gap left by the Niskanen retirement. We've said it a bunch of times, and last night was a perfect illustration of it. Gostisbehere was out to lunch on a couple goals. Really bad.
Cross-ice pass, my God.
Yeah, I mean he fed Kasperi Kapanen for a breakaway. The problem was Kasperi Kapanen plays for the Penguins.
Yeah.
And I also think that it will start with the defense, but then move on to Carter Hart.
So with the defense, obviously we're 19 games in, and they still don't have a top pairing that is set in stone. They don't. And if you don't think that's a problem in a 56-game season, I do. Now, the easy answer is, and we hear the media say, well, you'll just make a trade, and it's like, yeah, that's great. But they had the signing period last year, free agency period, when they were pretty sure Niskanen wasn't coming back based on what he said in the bubble, and the best they did then was Gustafsson. So how do you have the confidence that now they can fill this spot to try and make the playoffs? And the reason I say try and make the playoffs is because the Islanders are picking it up now. I think the Islanders are starting to hit their groove. The Flyers are the 4th or 5th team in that division. The Penguins have figured some things out. The Penguins really dominated the Flyers late in that game. Second half of the second period on, for most of it, there was some spurts for the Flyers without Sidney Crosby, and the Flyers had everybody. That is what is concerning, because the Flyers can't outscore everybody every game. They don't have the personnel for that. Yes, do they have a lot of scorers? Sure. But even Keith Jones was saying on the local broadcast, hey, it would be nice if, the defense could produce some points. Their defense has not been producing points. And, yes, everybody wants to whip on Gostisbehere, and that's fine. The lack of foot speed by Justin Braun yesterday was obvious, which gave Kapanen another breakaway. Kapanen almost had a natural hat trick within like a minute and 50 seconds. Like, that's what the time frame would have been.
And as we're watching that game, Kapanen scores that one goal, and I immediately said, "Wait a second, that was he did a Spezza."
Yeah,
and it came out after the game that apparently Spezza, who was Kapanen's teammate last year, they had exchanged text messages, and that was basically some sort of inspiration for him. And Carter Hart was undressed on that goal. He did the fake slap. He moved to the right. He opened up Hart's pads and he slid it right five hole.
Yeah, and also on the little 2-on-1 when they were down a man, you do want your goalie to be your best penalty killer, and Carter Hart can't dive after a puck.
No,
that's like 6 feet in front of him, because if you don't land on it, you see what happens, and that's what happened. They passed it across to the other player, and they get an easy goal because there's nobody in the net. Like, those are bad things. Now, I'm not going to blame the change at the end of the game when they're trying to get an extra attacker on and Pittsburgh scores. Maybe it's the only way Mike Matheson scores, but that was an embarrassing moment.
Well,
and that's something where Alain Vigneault probably killed his team for. We don't ever see that.
I'll give you a moment that's even more embarrassing. And okay, I'm not sure if it was 2 separate goals, so I'll just limit it to the one. The Cody Ceci goal where he dished off. I'm pretty sure this was a separate one from the one that we were watching, because I think Cece's goal was the one that made it 4-2 or 4-1. But the internal defense for the Flyers, it was a 4-way tic-tac-toe goal, 4-way passing play within the face-off dots, in the area where your defense is supposed to be centered and you can block out any internal passes. It was bing, 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 goal. It's like I couldn't believe how porous the Philadelphia defense was on that play. And I'm sure Vigneault after the game was tearing his hair out because of that play, because it shouldn't happen.
The problem with their defense is, look at the score sheet and you can see the problem. Shane Gostisbehere still got over 19 minutes of ice time in a game where he had no business getting 19 minutes of ice time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an indictment on the defense. So now maybe Gostisbehere sits and you bring Gustafsson back. Is it really going to change anything? Probably not. Don't think that Pittsburgh, in a first game of a series, wasn't going to throw Mark Friedman out, who had an assist and was a +2. And the only reason I bring it up is because the Flyers defense wasn't deep enough to give up a Mark Friedman and just toss him on waivers without thinking someone was going to take him, when you could have sent down Moran, who eventually got sent down the next day.
Right.
It was just mind-boggling. So there is some problems with the Flyers front office making not the right signings, not the right trades, all those things. I thank you, Arthur, for saying that Farabee's a great power play guy. He is. I mean, he's tremendous, and he is showing that he can be an elite player. Like, that is going to happen, but don't let that cover up the other things that are going wrong with this team. And look, Konechny will be back on the top line next game. That's all well and good. But in a 3-game series, when you knew that Sidney Crosby wasn't going to be in game 1, they needed to win game 1. Now you're going to have to go to Elliott in game 2, which you probably should have gone to Elliott in game 1 based on his record on the road. Now you're going to go to Elliott game 2. You're hoping Elliott wins game 2. And then, Mike, what are you doing for game 3? Who's the goalie? And that's where the problem starts to happen with this team.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could say that they're having a moderate level of success, and that I think that sort of clouds the issues. But I think as you get deeper into the season, and if you get past the deadline and they don't do anything to address the problems on defense, it's just going to expose the Flyers more that, I think there's a certain level of expectation for what they're supposed to do this year. And if they don't reach that, I think that not that anybody's going to get fired, but I think that criticism should be leveled on management for not addressing things that were apparent in the offseason. It's like Eric Gustafson is not an adequate replacement for Matt Niskanen. In what friggin' world is you've got one guy who all he does is play defense and the other one who doesn't know how to play defense?
I know. It's just, look, we're just telling you like it is. And this is the way it is. They can fix this. But if it doesn't get fixed this year, this problem now moves on into next year. And it doesn't get easier when you keep moving on, because then other things come into the mix. Can you trade Gostisbehere? Because now Gostisbehere's value is back to being down again. Yes, he had a few games where he was looking better, but after yesterday's game, how many teams do you really think are going to take a swipe or take a swing at Shane Gostisbehere?
I don't think it's hyperbole to say that the Shane Gostisbehere that got nominated for the Calder, that guy is gone. And he may not ever come back.
That's really true. I mean, and I like the guy. He's a really good guy. He's great in the locker room. He comes and takes his bullets after the game if he doesn't have a good game. But at the end of the day, this is the way it is right now for this team. And if Pittsburgh were to get hot, all of a sudden this winning percentage that Eck was talking about yesterday for the Flyers would become completely meaningless. Because, again, if you're looking long range, and Mike will laugh at this, but if you're looking long range and they don't fix this problem, can anybody here envision them beating the Boston Bruins to get out of that division?
Nope. Not a chance.
Now, Boston maybe could get knocked out by somebody else, but it's doubtful.
Yeah, if they play the Islanders.
Right.
Okay. Now, Carolina, Nashville last night, 4-2. Carolina victory. Carolina jumped out to a 3-0 lead. Nashville came back with 2, and then Aho scored his 8th of the year into the empty net. The news on this one was more what was announced before the game. And if you didn't think that Nashville – before the game and then after the game too – if you didn't think Nashville was dead, the announcement that Ryan Ellis is out for 4 to 6 weeks
that kills him
with an upper body injury, that Luke Cunnin is out for 2 to 4 weeks with a lower body injury, that Ryan Johansson is on the protocol list, one of, I think, 4 players on the protocol list right now. I mean, not 4 in the entire league. So, and then after the game, UC Saros, he was injured in the game. He had to leave. He did not come back, and they don't have a status on him. It's going to apparently be released sometime today, which means your goaltending is it's Pekka Rinne. And it's like, this is not the Pekka Rinne of 6 or 7 years ago. This is the Pekka Rinne holding on to the last vestiges of a great career.
I mean, the only thing left in Nashville is hot chicken and a Victrola playing Charlie Daniels. Like, there's not much else left.
Yeah. And that,
you know, someone's going to say, you should have said Vince Gill, Russ. And it's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, Vince Gill is actually good.
Yeah.
And he's married to Amy Grant. So, baby, if you remember.
I know who that is. but I'm just saying there's not much left there. So what the one thing we're going to see, and I think this will be the fascinating thing, and it's going to happen in another 2-3 weeks, maybe at the deadline, when there are teams that are, you know, pretty much sure they're not making the playoffs or on the cusp of not making it, and they have a chance to play some of the higher teams in their division. They are going to get very physical, very dirty, and they're going to try and, you know, take their frustration out on them. And you are going to have to worry about that if you are a playoff team. And, Mike, this is what used to happen in the old Patrick division in the East. You just tried to get healthy when you got into the playoffs, and you were hoping that your guys weren't cheap-shotted before it happened.
Yeah, they used to beat those games were not meaningless. They used to beat the crap out of each other.
It was attrition. It really was.
Now, again, looking at Nashville like we were looking at the Devils.
Oh, I did want to mention, Mike asked me, he was asking do I think the Penguins will be a buyer at the deadline? Yes, for the last time, they will do it for this year, and then you watch, things will start to change, but they will do it for this year.
Now, the thing is, though, I think that more than likely they will trade from their existing roster because they've already traded, I think, 3 or 4 draft picks from the next draft. How can Hextall start to, you know, reintroduce and revitalize the organization if he has no draft picks and then they trade even more of them? I think that, you know, unless they think they can recoup a lot of them in the off season, maybe they think they can do that by trading somebody like Letang or Malkin. But I don't think I think in this year, a team that is willing to take on a player with a salary and a team that's looking to dump that said salary, the price that they would have to pay isn't going to be significant. So maybe they can find some bargains out there. And, we know Burke and Hextall have connections throughout the league.
Yes.
That might be possible. But going back to Nashville, like we're looking at New Jersey, Nashville's list of potential guys that they are definitely trading is limited to Granlund, Haula, Brad Richardson, maybe Nick Cousins, who's got another year left, but those first three were UFA. After that, it's like anybody who might be available for trade has significant term left. Right. I don't think that they're going out there and saying, "Oh, sure, we'll trade Philip Forsberg." Philip Forsberg is one of the few guys on that team that can score.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to trade. They're going to trade him, but I know that Darren Dreger again yesterday connected Granlund with Toronto. I simply don't think. First of all, he makes too much money unless Nashville retains 50%. Mm-hmm. I really don't think that that's the direction that Toronto is going in terms of a deadline ad, because
I don't either. I think they're going to look for a player who's a little greasier than that, rather than
heavier. I think there's more of a chance of them going after Cousins than and Hall is not a heavy player, but going after Cousins or somebody like Cousins than Granlund. Granlund is
one of the best heavy players, or at least greasy players. I wouldn't say heavy. I would say greasy, who you could really use in the playoffs would be Luke Glendening. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams calling about him to Detroit. I mentioned him on Sirius when I was on the other day. Whether he will leave to do it is another story, but his contract's up, right? So he could leave and come back.
He's a free agent at the end, UFA.
I think he'll be a hot commodity, Mike. I do.
Well, 1.8 cap hit.
Yeah.
But okay, he's a really good face-off guy.
That's a big deal.
So, but I think there are playoff teams that he would fit. I'm not sure about Toronto. It wouldn't be ironic.
Well, look at the Penguins as an example.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. Maybe a team like Edmonton, because Ken Holland knows him pretty well. The cap hit's not big. But what I was going to say, wouldn't it be ironic after 2 or 3 years of pleading with general managers, Babcock asking them for them to trade Glendening, that Babcock is gone and they trade for Glendening? Richard,
that'd be funny.
Richard in the chat. Now I'm assuming he means Nick Foligno, because Nick Foligno is a UFA at the end of the year.
Right.
I don't think that you're going to have Columbus trade their team captain, and especially since he wants to stay in Columbus.
Yeah, they're not going to trade him.
I mean, honestly, if he hadn't re-signed and extended with Minnesota, I thought Marcus Foligno was sort of that big forward type that teams like Toronto that needed third, fourth line sort of muscle, but more like just a depth forward would go after. But he signed an extension, and I think Minnesota definitely wants to keep him. So, let me see. Glendening would certainly be an upgrade over Jujhar Khaira. Yeah, I think so. I think that's the thing I think that Edmonton needs. We know that they can score on the top two lines, but their third and fourth line are littered with Gaetan Haas and
Haas is a good faceoff guy, and he's good defensively. He is
right.
Good for that.
Tyler Ennis is feisty, but I don't know how much is left there. I mean, it's one thing if the guy is placed on waivers and you pick him up for nothing, but I don't know how.
There'll be some of those guys, because some teams will just want to shed salary and hope someone gets that off their hands. There will be some of that, Mike. I think we will see 3 or 4 players from these kinds of teams doing that. I do.
And Yzerman, I'm sure Yzerman will play out Glendening to the utmost in terms of trying to get value for him.
I did want to mention, even though Ottawa did lose to Montreal, Joey Decord probably had a pretty good game. And Joey Decord was the goalie at Arizona State. I did get to see him in the regionals, and it's nice that they're actually looking at him now, because in the end, if let's say they do get rid of Matt Murray, and let's say he does go to Seattle, maybe they are looking at Joey Daccord as their next goalie. I mean, they may be giving him an audition right now. We don't know if it's going to happen, Mike, but it is possible.
Yeah, I just can't see them exposing Murray to Seattle. I really can't.
Nothing would surprise me for Ottawa. I'm 50-50 on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Gustafsson is exempt or if they would, or they're not protecting Marcus Hoberg over Matt Murray unless they desperately want to get out of the final 3 years of that deal at $6.25 million.
And they might.
I mean, that I don't put anything past Eugene Melnyk when it comes to things of that nature. Now, one other thing, Ottawa. Before we go back to some of the other games, Derek Stepan was shut down for the rest of the season. He's going to have surgery on his shoulder that was dislocated, so he's out for the year. And I said this on Twitter, and I ended up deleting it because I didn't want to take the everybody the critique of my speculation, but Derek Stepan, Ottawa's not a cap team, so Derek Stepan will be placed on IR for the rest of the season. He's a tradable commodity. Mm-hmm. You could trade him to a team that is up against the cap and put him on LTIR, and that would open up cap space, just like we saw with the deal that Tampa Bay made before the season when it came to Anders Nielsen and Marian Gaborik. The capologists can play around with these guys who are on IR going to LTIR to open up space.
Wait, do you mean the capologists on Teams or the capologists on Twitter?
Well, the capologists on Teams know what they're talking about.
Oh, okay.
The capologists on Twitter, I'm not casting aspersions on all of them because some of them may know what they're talking about. But, I mean, come on. It's happened before. It'll happen again. That type of move. I mean, I am not a capologist, but I know that it's happened before, and I know that it will happen again. And that's a $6.25 million cap hit. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to open up $6.25 million, but you may be able to open up enough in projected cap space, moving a guy from IR to LTIR.
At a deadline, it could be a couple $1 million.
Right. So, I mean, that's definitely a move that could happen. Now,
I wanted to give a quick history lesson here. NHL history girl who I know and I've met, and she does a great job.
Yes.
She posted this on this date in 1923. Harvard head coach William H. Claflin, and multi-sport letterman George Owen 23. I'm not sure what that means.
Maybe was he 23 years old?
Maybe, changed hockey forever with their innovation of the line change. And when I saw that, I was like, well, I guess players just left when they were tired, like individually. And Bob Duff chimed in. Now, Bob Duff wasn't covering the league then, but, close. And he said, yes, that's what they did. A key to Victoria beating the Canadiens in the 24-25 Stanley Cup final was that Lester Patrick rolled his forwards out in units of lines while the Habs were still just changing when they were tired. So good for Lester. He was always a good hockey guy. And then now this is the mind-boggling part. This is where it gets crazy. Players actually said it was cold, so they would stay in the dressing room, play cards to stay warm, and there was a buzzer system. And the buzzer system, basically when you wanted to get in the game, you would get buzzed. Each player was assigned a number of buzzes. If the player rang for their number, they would go to the bench and go to the ice. So, like, I don't know, if you were like number 10, you'd have to buzz that guy 10 times.
Let me ask, was there a buzzer system for Vince Coleman in the Mets locker room?
No, but I think this is kind of amazing. The other thing, which I didn't get an answer for, was how cold were the fans? But
they don't give a crap about the fans. Come on.
But the interesting thing was Bob also wrote that Odie Cleghorn, who played for that Canadiens team, employed the same formula in 25-26 when he took over as the coach of the new Pittsburgh club. He rolled his lines, and Pittsburgh made the playoffs as a first-year team. So literally, you didn't have to be a good coach. You just had to figure out how to get players on the ice that weren't tired. That's all it took back then.
Yeah, the funny thing is that we think now, like we think about 45-second shifts. And if a guy is out there, like Hockey Night in Canada or NBCSN will put something in the top window, Mitch Marner shift 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And then they finally, because it's so unusual. Whereas if you watch like some of the older games from 91 playoffs and somebody's out there for 2.5 minutes and normal, like they're out there for
I'm guessing these guys were probably out there 5 to 10 minutes, honestly, because they weren't skating at the rates they're skating now. And that's my guess. Richard Petrosky wrote something funny. He was like, well, you know what they say without the buzz, about the 10 buzz.
And there you go. Nice one.
That was good. But no, think about it. Those guys were probably out there 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. No, I'd probably.
I mean, how much does it take? You want to get through at least a couple of hands of cards. Like that would be probably the thing. It's like, well, listen, I can't go out on the ice. I might have a full I might have a inside track to a straight flush. I can't go back out on the ice.
Especially if they're playing Hold'em like at the World Series, where they're like sitting there with the glasses on and the thing. And
like, what would happen? What would happen? You're playing, right, and everybody's getting ready to show their cards, and you get buzzed on the ice, and you got like a full house.
I have to say I flipped on. I was flipping through the channels and the World Series of Poker from 2020 was on there. And to make it even worse now, you've got the guys with the sunglasses and the guys with the hoods, and now they're wearing the mask. So it's for COVID.
Yes.
You can't see and you cannot see a facial expression with these guys. There's no way that there's any tell with these guys because their eyes are covered, their mouth is covered. It's it's like playing against an invisible man. Basically.
Yeah.
All right, fast forward through a couple games because I want to get to the Jets beat the Canucks 5-2. Laurent Brasseau with the victory, which whenever they get a win with anybody other than Connor Hellebuck, I think it's a big deal. Canucks still struggling defensively. I don't know. One encouraging thing is
who was in net for that one.
I think it was Demko, but I'm checking right now. The one encouraging, no, it was Holtby.
Yeah, so you want to play Demko back to back. That makes sense.
The one encouraging thing for the Canucks is that Pettersson seems to be on track now. He's got 10 goals. It was only a matter of time, but really their problems are not at the offensive end of the ice. They're at the defensive end.
Right.
And, again, I don't think we're going to see anything in terms of Benning or Green getting fired until after the year, but I think that there's going to be a really dramatic review.
They might be cleaning house there. Yeah.
Now, the Lightning win 2-0 over the Dallas Stars in a rematch of the Stanley Cup Final. Andre
Vasilevsky does have a crazy good save percentage at the moment.
Yes, and 199 consecutive minutes of shutout hockey. That's more than 3 games. So that's, Russ, he's the best goalie.
That you could do the math, Mike. That's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it was my worst subject too. Now, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned this. Just talking about. Now, here's the question: is Lawson Krause, is his game developed well enough that you could consider him a third line forward on a good team? I don't know.
Yeah, he's in between on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, to my mind, he's probably a fourth liner on a good team. Now, the Leafs.
I would rather have Lawson Krause than Wayne Simmons. Just me, I would.
Well, the Leafs like Wayne Simmons.
I know that, Mike. I'm not debating that.
But
would you telling you what I would?
What I'm asking is, would you rather play Lawson Krause over a guy like Travis Boyd? And I would, because
I might give it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, Lawson. And that's not casting aspersions on Travis Boyd because he's played very well in a.
Well, he's on the power play, Mike. I saw Travis Boyd on the power play.
They just experiment. They rewarded them. The guy scored a power play goal. They gave him a chance. But no, Krause is 6'4", 220, and he's a banger, and he's always been physical. But
he's got pretty good hands too. He does.
But he's got 2 assists in 18 games. And that's the thing. It's like maybe he needs a change of scenery. He scored 15 goals last year. So
I would change the scenery because there is a little talent in that guy.
And I'm just looking right now to see what he's making. I don't think he's making a lot of money. He is 1.5 million for another, and he's got another year on his contract. So yeah, I mean that's a possibility, but I don't know if they think he doesn't fit what supposedly they're looking for. I think they're looking for a third line winger with size, and I don't know whether that's really a fit. Okay, the game I saved for last here was the Rangers and the Sabres. First of all, anybody who watches the MSG broadcast, and the way it is locally here, we get the MSG broadcast with the Sabres broadcast. Mm-hmm. So we get Rick Jeanneret and Rob Ray and Dan Dunleavy, and then Brian Duff and Marty Baron doing the in-between period stuff. So we don't see the Rangers broadcast in terms of, Steve Valiquette and whoever else are doing there. Valiquette and our buddy Joe Yerdon retweeted this. Valiquette excoriated the Sabres in the post game, basically saying it doesn't even look like they're trying. The funny thing is, from the Sabres end of it, everybody was enthused that Dylan Cousins got into a fight with Lindgren, and they thought it was a decent effort compared to some of the other games that they played.
Yeah, that's what's worrisome, I guess.
Right, and that's now Eichel.
Valiquette's a straight shooter. I know Steve. I've run into him. I've interviewed him when he's a player, when he's on TV. He's a straight shooter, man. He's not playing around. Yeah, no, but it was just strange at the. It was just strange at the difference between the point of view of the Rangers and the point of view of the Sabres. Now, again, we know people who do these broadcasts, and some of them, their paychecks are paid by the teams, so they're limited in terms of what they can say. But from a I'm sorry, I'm completely distracted. Anthony Mingione has sent a message into our chat room to mention that locally here. I believe it's locally here in New Jersey, close to me, Winslow Township High School football has now hired Christian Hackenberg as their quarterback coach. I don't know how you could hire him as a quarterback coach when he never threw a pass for the Jets. That's all.
What is he, 25 years old?
It's crazy.
He's 25 years old. He was drafted in the second round of the NFL draft.
And he never threw a pass.
He never threw a pass because he sucks. Yeah, okay. Moving on from that. Thank you, Anthony, for that distraction. Okay, first from the Rangers' perspective. Actually, not from the Rangers' perspective. Let's from the Buffalo perspective, because it's all bad. Carter Hutton is the worst goalie in the NHL. He really is.
Hold on, let me take that in for a minute. I guess when Anton Forsberg's not in the league, he is.
And proof of this, watch the replay of Chris Kreider scoring a goal last night. Now,
you were telling me about it.
Okay, but I didn't give you the payoff on this one. Kreider shoots the puck through the legs of Brandon Montour, and it goes top corner past Hutton, and Hutton waves at it after the puck had already hit the twine. So it was like one of those things, make it look good, but it only looks bad on the replay. As Kreider rounds the net, he doesn't raise his arms, and it was only 3-1. I think it was the one made it 3-1. So he comes on the net. He's standing on the boards. All the other players come over to congratulate him, and he mouths. And I think I read it correctly. He says, "That went in." That's what he said. It was that went in. He couldn't believe that it went in. I mean,
that's crazy.
Now, okay, from the Buffalo perspective.
No, actually, I'm going to give one thing from the Ranger perspective. Going back to the guy who was on air the other day who said that he wanted to get rid of Chris Kreider because the contract is terrible. Since then, he has scored like 6 goals, and he's got 10 on the season. So I think people should chill out on that, because 10 goals puts you maybe in 29th right now in the NHL. But if you have 12, you're 5th in the league in scoring, like you would tie Brock Besser. So I would leave Chris Kreider alone. That team is the 10th worst team in the league right now. They could be worse. They've gone on at least won a few games, because let's face it, you want to go on a winning streak, just play a series against Buffalo.
Well, yeah, Kreider is must have been watching the show, and that served as motivation. But yeah. And I mentioned yesterday when we talked about the Sabres for a few minutes, when a coach purposely mentions a fight. I don't know if it was meaningless or meaningful. They said that the bench got all psyched up when Dylan Cousins, who's 19 years old, gets into a fight with Lindgren. When you're grasping at that to be, motivation, it's pretty sad. But it's even sadder when your veteran coaches say, "Oh, he really inspired the bench." I mean, come on, please. You really.
But everybody's reaching, Mike. I heard Ken Danico say on a local broadcast yesterday, hey, but at least the Devils fought to the end. And it's like, yeah, okay, Ken, you scored a goal with 13 seconds left. Otherwise, you were pretty much dominated completely in this game and shut out completely in this game. But that's what people do now, Mike.
Yeah. But Larry Brooks wrote today in the New York Post, and I mentioned yesterday the article that Fluto Shinzawa posted in The Athletic. Don't get me wrong, I'm a writer, so I get when you're in the regular season and you're 6 weeks before the deadline and you really can't write about speculation about trades, that's in terms of more realistic ones, you're gonna stretch the bounds of credulity when it comes to potential trades. And Fluto did it in The Athletic, talking about Boston having interest in Eichel, and Larry Brooks did it in the Post in terms of the Rangers having interest in Eichel. Everybody has interest in Eichel. Nobody in their right mind, even the Toronto Maple Leafs with Tavares and Austin Matthews, have interest in Jack Eichel. They just can't fit another $10 million salary under the cap. But everybody is. But Larry Brooks comes out and says, well, the Rangers aren't going to be extorted in a pursuit of Eichel. Then I hate to tell you, Larry, then the Rangers aren't getting Eichel. And I'm telling you right now, what's going on here is I'm sure that people within the Bruins organization and people within the Rangers organization are floating out this stuff to get it out there to send signals to first of all, the Sabres aren't trading Eichel, at least not right now. But to put it out there, well, they're not going to be extorted. Then you're not going to get them.
Okay, hold this. So headline, Mike. 1978. I'm 15 years old. Mm-hmm. I pick up the New York Daily News, but it also ran in the New York Times. The headline on the New York Times, Rod Carew is disenchanted. And Donald Grant of the Mets, and it goes into it and it says, Rod Carew is not asked to be traded, but for the Twins to trade Rod Carew, and it's like, I remember reading that as a kid, and I'm like, wow, are the Mets going to get Rod Carew? And of course they didn't. He didn't even get close. They didn't even get close to getting Rod Carew. He went to the Angels later on.
Right.
My basic point on this is that's all this stuff is right now with Jack Eichel.
Exactly. Russell Wilson.
And I'm not going for it again.
Yeah. Russell Wilson doesn't want to be traded, but if he does want to be traded, he'll go to the. Is it the Jersey hook? Is that what it's called? Yeah. So yeah. I'm sorry. It's like, we said it yesterday. Eichel's got a no-move clause that kicks in after the 21-22 season. More than likely, if the Sabres are going to trade him, first of all, he's going to have input in whether he wants to stay. Right now, nothing is out there publicly accurately that says he's asking to be traded. And even if he's asking to be traded, how is that doing for Sam Bennett and Virtanen in Calgary and in Vancouver? Just because you ask to be traded doesn't mean you're going to be traded.
Right.
Now, the whole thing here is
the nail gun's getting closer, Mike. We're gonna have to end soon.
Okay, no, I thought that was like it was like a whip.
No, it's a nail gun.
Okay, but the whole thing here is whether the Sabres get equal value for Eichel, and Eichel is a top 5 center in this league, and
right.
if you consider asking for Capo Caco or Alexis Lafreniere in the deal for a guy who's an established top 5 center.
They're going to get mentioned. There's no question.
Right. That's not extortion. That's fair. That's the beginnings of fair value.
Right. If you can make the trade and not have them be in it, more power to you, but it's not extortion.
Right. They're not going to get Jack. The Rangers are not going to get Jack Eichel for the same price that the San Jose Sharks got Joe Thornton.
Or for the same price that the Tampa Bay Lightning got Ryan McDonough. But anyhow.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Before we see the nail gun fly past you, we will end the show there, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.